millions of Ukrainian men signed up to join the army. Ukrainian commander admits frontline recruits lack basic skills. The tearful story of a Ukrainian female officer and her husband captured by Russia. President John Biden called Donald Trump a criminal for the first time. Millions of Ukrainian men signed up to join the army. The Ukrainian Ministry of Defense said that about 1.5 million men in this country have registered to enlist in the army in the near future. After the new mobilization law took effect in Ukraine on May 18, men of military age had 60 days to update their personal data to help the state determine each person's location. The majority of updates are done using the new online application, Reserve Plus. In addition to using the application, young Ukrainians can update their data at public service centers or military enlistment offices. The Ministry of Defense of Ukraine further informed that more than 14,000 young Ukrainians living and working in 124 countries updated their login information using this application. Among the leading countries are Poland, Germany, Canada, Czech Republic, US, UK, Spain, Lithuania, Netherlands, and Slovakia. In April, Ukraine temporarily suspended consular services abroad for men of military age, but reinstated them in May. Young men of military age can apply for consular services only with electronic documents or proof of name in the military service registration book. On April 11, the Ukrainian National Assembly also passed a bill on military conscription, with the main content of tightening conscription regulations and clearly defining those who enlist. Specifically, the bill reduces the age for military enlistment from 27 to 25 years old. People who are disabled after February 24, 2022, except soldiers, will have to have a medical examination again to assess their suitability to serve in the military. Ukrainian commander admits frontline recruits lack basic skills. The Ukrainian battlefield commander complained to the U.S. media about the quality of recruits sent to the front line to help stop Russia's advance. The Washington Post quoted Ukrainian soldiers and commanders fighting on the front lines as saying that recruits recently reinforced were lacking basic skills such as mounting guns and firing weapons. Commanders have raised questions about the quality of training as they have to retrain recruits who should have been combat-ready when deployed. They also expressed concern that Ukraine is lacking soldiers with battle experience as the conflict still has no end. According to the Washington Post, when Ukraine rotated people from rear positions to replace frontline fighters, many did not meet the basic requirements for fighting. Notably, these are not soldiers who have recently joined the army but have undergone training. An officer of the 93rd Mechanized Brigade, nicknamed Schmidt, said that some of the recruits under his command did not know how to assemble or disassemble rifles. "We're wasting a lot of time on basic training here," Schmidt said. He required newcomers to train during their first week by firing about 1,500 rounds a day. The 93rd Mechanized Brigade participated in some of the fiercest fighting of the war, including the battles of Bakhmut, Kharkov and Avdiivka. The new men in Schmidt's unit will likely be deployed near the city of Chasiv Yar, Donetsk, where heavy fighting is taking place. A new soldier to the unit, nicknamed Var, told the Washington Post that he was only given 1 day's notice that he would have to go to the front lines. As for new recruits, Ukraine's training centers are barely equipped to provide basic training for soldiers, according to the Washington Post. One instructor said that some training facilities did not have enough Soviet-caliber ammunition and only allowed trainees to fire about 20 rounds before the end of their training. There are no grenades to throw in the training centers and no ammunition for the grenade launchers. "We do not have an adequate training system in place," he admitted. The West is very interested in training the Ukrainian army. Kyiv has recently begun receiving new batches of U.S. military equipment and weapons, but dwindling human resources are a huge problem. As Ukraine tries to fill gaps in its military, NATO member states have hinted at plans to deploy military instructors in Ukraine to help train groups of recruits. Ukraine is having difficulty finding and training forces to keep up with Russia, especially as its rear is vulnerable to Moscow's long-range attacks. The tearful story of a Ukrainian female officer and her husband captured by Russia. Mariana Chechelyuk, a 24-year-old police officer recently freed from Russian captivity, shared the story of her beloved husband, who fought alongside her at the Azovstal steel plant. Vladislav Andrianov is a fighter of the Azov Brigade and Mariana's beloved husband. He is still in Russian custody. He survived the Russian attack on the Olenivka prisoner-of-war camp in July 2022, but last year, the Russians sentenced him to 25 years in prison. My husband, the other half of my broken heart, he survived the attack in Olenivka. He bravely defended Mariupol. Now, he is serving 25 years of captivity in Na. If I had the opportunity to be imprisoned instead of you, I would not hesitate to stay there, Mariana said. Mariana also went through her captivity in Russia with a black thread instead of a ring. It gave her the strength to live, love, and keep her beloved in her heart. You fought bravely so that I could live freely in my country. You are an indomitable and brave person. When I was imprisoned, I dreamed that when I returned, you would pick me up, Mariana wrote. For the past 2 years, I've hoped that you would come home. This is a big blow to my heart. Hold on, my love, we will soon get you back, and your suffering will be over. We will return to the happy life that was abruptly interrupted by war. In May 2022, Mariana Chechelyuk, a 22-year-old national police investigator from Mariupol, was captured by the Russians as she tried to evacuate the city with her sister. The Russians did not let the girl pass the purification step and detained her for more than 2 years. She was initially taken to a pre-trial detention center in Donetsk. She was then held in a prisoner-of-war camp in Olenivka and then a prison in Taganrog, Russia. In January 2024, Mariana's mother, Natalia Chechelyuk, alleged that her daughter was horribly tortured while in detention, causing her to become seriously ill. Mariana was brought home on May 31 as part of the 52nd prisoner exchange with Russia, along with 74 other Ukrainians. Those released included members of the Armed Forces of Ukraine and the National Guard, border guards, and 4 civilians. This exchange included 10 Azovstal defenders, including a female Azov soldier. President John Biden called Donald Trump a criminal for the first time. President Biden called Mr. Trump a criminal for the first time after the New York jury's verdict, criticizing his opponent for damaging the U.S. justice system. The election campaign is witnessing unprecedented things in American history. For the first time, a former president and a criminal who has been found guilty by a jury is trying to run for the White House, U.S. President Joe Biden said during a fundraising event in Connecticut on June 3. This is the first time the White House boss has used the term criminal to describe an opponent in the U.S. presidential election later this year, marking a new escalation in his efforts to attack the Republican candidate. President Biden previously commented on the Manhattan Criminal Court jury's conviction of Mr. Trump, but did not directly attack the former president, only saying that no one is above the law. What is even more seriously damaging are Donald Trump's comprehensive attacks on the American judicial system, President Biden added, referring to Mr. Trump's statements that the trial in New York rigged, fraudulent and disgraceful. The Democratic campaign seems to be very careful about using the ruling targeting Donald Trump to attack him. Some commentators have suggested that President Biden not mention developments in court and focus on election policy in the near future. The jury of Manhattan Criminal Court, New York, on May 30 declared Donald Trump guilty of all 34 counts in the prosecution of falsifying business records and spending money to hide unfavorable information during his election campaign. 2016, the verdict made Mr. Trump the first former U.S. president in history to be prosecuted and convicted, and also the first candidate of a political party to be found guilty when running for the White House. These charges are Class E felonies, the lowest-level felony in New York, with penalties such as probation, fines, and up to 4 years in prison. New York Judge Juan Merchan will sentence Mr. Trump on July 11. Observers believe that he is unlikely to have to go to jail, because he has no criminal record and his violation was not violent.